My name is Montana Miller. This is September 22nd, 2014, and we are here at Skydive Chicago, just wrapping up the USPA Nationals. The competition's almost over, and I competed in 8-way with my team that I created this year, Octopussy. So, you just want me to talk about my motivations and achievements in the sport? Well, I actually didn't discover skydiving until I was 40 years old. I'm 44 now, but I had spent my life doing various different other aerial professions, and that was because from a very young age I had a strong desire to be as high as possible in the air, flying my body. I always really felt it was a tragedy that I was born in a human body, and tried to escape that through learning to fly in any way that I could. Not flying planes, but flying my own body. So I used to be a professional flying trapeze artist for many years, and then I was a professional high diver. I worked in theme parks, diving from insanely high perches into tiny pools. None of those professions ever really made me truly happy, and it was actually quite accidental that I tried skydiving when I was 40 years old. I never knew anything about the sport and did not realize what you could do movement-wise in the air. Because I was so ignorant, I thought it was just a straight drop from a plane to the ground, and that didn't seem interesting to me. So I never tried it until the day that a friend of mine who I wanted to hang out with, because I was in California and wanted to visit him, he was going. So I thought I would just keep him company, because I knew that it wouldn't scare me and I'd probably be bored, but it would be fun to watch him be all scared. So off we went to Elsinore to do our first tandem jump, and I thought this whole scene was a little weird with all the jumpsuits. They seemed weird to me, and like I could see how much trouble it was packing the parachutes. I thought, this is a lot of trouble and silliness to go to for just dropping straight down out of a plane. I was lucky enough to have a tandem instructor that day who was one of the great ones. He'd been doing it for 30 years, I think. His name is Matt McCarter at Elsinore. He's still doing tandems there. He's one of those tandem instructors that makes you feel like you are his only student ever, or at least that you're a special one. And he actually took a little interest in who I was. Like when I told him about my background, I told him all the things I had done acrobatically, and so, there's this thing with tandem instructors where students always say, I want to do flips and shit, right? Well, when I said, can we do some flips out of the plane, he was like, well, do you promise to open into a good arch when I tap you? And I was like, absolutely, you can rely on me. And since I'd done millions of triples off diving boards and flying trapeze, he actually did trust me, and I thank him for that. So we went up and did our jump, and that was the moment that the light came on in my brain. The moment that we opened into that arch, and he didn't even need to tap me because I could feel when it was the time to open, but as soon as I felt that relative wind, as soon as I felt the pressure of the air, and suddenly understood that when you're skydiving, you are a bird, you can turn your body, move your body, and really control your flight, I instantly knew that this was what I had been looking for my whole life, and not just skydiving, but I knew that I had to be a tandem instructor. And by the time we landed, I had decided that I was going to be a tandem instructor. Well, that turned out to be a lot harder than I knew it would be hard, but it was hard. And it still is hard, and I'm still at the very beginning of my tandem career. And yet that sense of purpose in life, that's what I was put on earth to do, stays with me. So as many obstacles as I face being a small female tandem instructor at the beginning of my career, I know that I'm not going to give up, because it really feels like that's what I was meant to do, and I love doing it. And I think the key is, for me, that my life has not just been about trying to fly, but also how to communicate through flight. And as a performer, I really tried to do that for many years, but it was so hard because you have this audience that's really just there for entertainment, and a lot of times they're too scared to even look at you, and to actually communicate something about the experience of flight through performance is difficult. that concept is also why I designed my parachute with the bird on it. I wanted people to get something out of seeing me fly and, realize that there's something symbolic about it and meaningful. So by doing tandems, this is the ultimate embodiment of communicating through flight. You are communicating physically, empathetically. You're accompanying somebody in showing them what it is like to experience what the birds do, not just performing it for them or telling them about it. So that's why I love it so much. I also find that the thing that makes me love 8-way skydiving so much is that same concept of communicating, except that this time it's communicating with my teammates. And I love that looking each other in the eye and really being in sync with each other when we're creating these gorgeous formations together in the air. And really, any kind of formation skydiving, you have that, whether it's big ways or 4-way. But I personally find 8-way to be the most beautiful. And I like that sense of being on a team. When you have 8 people, you really feel like a powerful team together. So I always thought Moxie was so cool, and I know about Passionate and the other all-female teams that have been out there, but sometimes there's been sort of a, not that they deserve this, but there's almost been like a sexual stereotype that goes with them. Passionate, I think, really played that up with their makeup and their hair, and they were super sexy. Moxie had kind of a counter culture sexiness to them, like a little bit of a bisexual vibe. I don't know. I don't want to assume anything, but certainly they had that kind of reputation. Well, I just thought I want to name my team Octopussy to acknowledge that we are sexy and we are hot, but I want every member of the team to be a strong, successful woman who has a life that she has achieved, not just in skydiving, but that has a strong identity, not based on any kind of sexual, attraction or anything, and that the members of my team can be inspiring to women as a whole, not even just female skydivers. And I also wanted to try to avoid the sort of stereotypical drama that female teams are said to have, which turned out to be a lot harder than I thought it would be. Anyway, it has been a year. I have learned so much this year, not just about 8-way technically, but about what it means to be a leader of a team. And I've made my mistakes, and I've tried to constantly be aware of how I'm managing my role and respecting my teammates. And it's just been nonstop troubleshooting and managing and adjusting, and we've had several roster changes for various reasons, and we will have more roster changes coming up soon. And there's just been so many ups and downs. Right now, coming off of Nationals, I'm so proud of how my team did. In our first year, we really performed consistently, and we performed a little bit above the level we had been training at, and I'm really proud. At the same time, there's a great sense of letdown in the ways that, the season ended, with some discouraging, reactions from some of the team members, and I know that big changes are ahead. And it was a big decision, am I going to keep trying with this team? And when I came up with the idea, I saw it as like a long-term project, like a 10-year project. And one thing I know about myself is, even at the moments when I get the most discouraged and feel like I have to give up, like with tandems, for example, that's happened many times, I know now myself well enough to know that I'm not capable of giving up when it's something I care that much about. So after maybe half a day of feeling really discouraged, I somehow always bounce back and go, you know what, maybe this can turn into something good, and maybe this is all for the best, and I'm gonna keep going. So both Octopussy and the tandems, I'm gonna keep going. And now that we've had a good showing in our first year, I think that next year is going to be even better. One thing I really have going for me is an amazing coach. Jeanette Lefkowitz is a woman in the sport who is inspiring not only in her athletic performance, but in her approach to people. And I think that's the greatest thing she's brought to this team, is teaching us how to be a team. And she's guided me so much as the captain in managing the human relations that are part of a complicated team of 8 strong women who all have strong opinions. So I'm devoted to Jeanette and really hope that we will do something great with Octopussy in the future. I guess I just also want to mention, you know, the significant things for me in the sport of skydiving. I can't talk about them without mentioning Mario, who's the love of my life. And, you know, everything that I do in the sport, even if he's not with me, he's by my side. You know, we have constant communication. It's so wonderful to be in a relationship with a skydiver who really understands what your dreams and your passions are, because even if I get taken away, you know, most weekends to go do tandem somewhere else or go train with my team, I never hear jealousy or resentment from him. He completely gets it, completely supports my dreams, and I return that to him. So if he has opportunities that take him away from me on his skydiving projects, and he's an amazing 4-way and 8-way competitor, I want his success more than anything, and I want him to be happy, and I know we both understand that this is what makes us happy. And yet, even more than that, the love that I have for him is actually the most important thing, and if he ever did ask me to stay home from something because he needed me, it wouldn't even be a sacrifice. So I'm so grateful to the sport for bringing Mario into my life. And the way that that happened is a wonderful story, because I was a baby skydiver with, you know, 250 jumps and didn't even know what 4-way was really. And somebody suggested to me that I should go try it and go to nationals with a pickup team. And luckily I had enough sense to know that that was a stupid thing to do if I didn't have a player coach to tell me what it all was about. So at that point I had chosen Dan BC at Paris as my mentor. And basically at that point in my skydiving career, I was just doing everything that Dan told me to. And I would go out to Paris, do the 40 ways. I was learning big ways at that point, and I would go talk to Dan and say, Dan, what should I do? Like, should I get an RSL? What kind of rig should I have? Who should I get to coach me? And whatever he advised me, like, I would do, because I've learned in my lifetime, in my many different professions, that you pick a good mentor and then you follow their advice, and you don't question it. But you make sure you have a good mentor, because there's some bad ones out there. So when I decided to go to nationals, I asked Dan if he could find me a coach to take me through. And he said that he would think about it, and then I didn't hear back from him for weeks. And so I pretty much gave up on the idea. But then 3 days before nationals, I got an email from him. He actually posted on my Facebook page, Montana, do you still want to go to nationals? Because I think I have the perfect person for you. So then I get this email from Dan to me and Mario saying, Mario, meet Montana. Montana, meet Mario. I think you guys should do some 4-way together at the nationals. So I pulled together, I found these other 2 guys that were about my experience level, so rookies, but they were both rich, so they were able to drop everything and buy a plane ticket and go to Eloy. So we go out to Eloy, and I meet Mario the day before the competition, and I never believed in love at first sight, and I probably still don't, but there was something there immediately, the moment I met him. And he's not even my type. I've never thought Italians were attractive at all. So that was quite surprising to me. Like, why do I feel such a strong connection to this Italian-looking guy? And his name is Mario. I actually said to my friend Emily Watt, I'm not going to date some guy named Mario. So surprising enough, after a few days of flying with him, I was totally smitten, completely smitten. And I went back to Paris a month later, and ever since nationals, Mario had been calling me every night, and so we had a real friendship growing that was clearly headed toward romance. So I went out to Paris, and I did my 500th jump with Dan BC, a 2-way. And on the way up in the plane, I said, so Dan, thank you so much for setting me up with Mario as a coach. He was great. And you know what? I think I'm falling for him. And Dan looks at me with a completely serious look on his face, and he says, well, I think he's gay. And I went through, like, oh my gosh, maybe that explains what a gentleman he was. Like, oh, like, could he actually be gay? Like, maybe, I'm trying to remember, like, all the hints, like, maybe he is. And then Dan just cracks up, because of course he was kidding. and I had completely fallen for it. And Dan still remembers that moment with great glee. Um, and every time we go out to Paris for these big events, and it's clear that we are so in love, and Dan just looks at us and goes, I never would have thought this would happen. I was just giving you a coach. And it's like a beautiful story. I mean, I never would have thought that this man, I never would have gone after this particular guy. And I owe it all to Dan BC. And that just goes to show how important it is to pick a wise mentor in the sport. And then do whatever they say. And you never know what unexpected gifts are going to come along with it. So I have never been so happy in my life. I have the man that was meant for me. I have challenging projects that really stretch me but are so meaningful to me, both the tandems and the 8-way team. And I really think the bottom line is there's so much, I'm so aware that I could lose all of it so easily. So it's so important to be vigilant at every moment and treasure every moment and appreciate it. So I don't have any particular sign-off that I use at the drop zone, and I don't really do the whole bonfire thing. So I don't know how to sign off, except I could think of something rather obscene to say, but I wouldn't want to put it on video.